Everything Meghan Markle thought Montecito would give her quietly turned into the exact thing she could never control: a neighborhood that saw everything, said nothing, and still rejected her anyway. She arrived chasing privacy, peace, a fresh start wrapped in ocean air and billionaire silence. But the silence she got wasn't peaceful. It was deliberate. It was observant. It was the kind of silence that doesn't welcome you in, it studies you first. Because Montecito isn't a place that reacts loudly, it decides quietly. And by the time Meghan Markle realized what was happening, the decision had already been made behind closed gates, over dinner tables she was never invited to. This wasn't just a move, it was an expectation. Meghan Markle didn't just buy a house, she bought into a narrative where admiration would follow automatically. But admiration in Montecito doesn't work like headlines. It isn't handed out. It's earned slowly, invisibly, over years. And the moment she arrived expecting it instantly, something shifted. Then came the first crack. Jennifer Aniston. Not just a neighbor, a symbol. A test Meghan Markle didn't even realize she was taking. Because when Jennifer Aniston moved nearby, it wasn't just proximity, it was opportunity. Or at least, that's how Meghan Markle saw it. A famous neighbor, a potential ally, a perfectly curated friendship waiting to happen. But what happens when one person is already scripting the friendship and the other hasn't even opened the door yet?
Jennifer Aniston has joined Gwyneth Paltrow in snubbing Meghan Markle in a brutal blow to the fake Duchess's ambition to create a new Hollywood posse in Montecito to replace Oprah Winfrey and Ellen DeGeneres and Portia de Rossi, who have fled to the UK. Radar Online reports Meghan Markle is eyeing up her biggest prize to date in her ambitious bid to create a glitzy Avengers-style gang of heavyweight Hollywood A-listers. The Friends icon is just about to move into her new home just yards from Markle's front door in Montecito, and the Duchess is desperate, I'm sure she is, to bag her as a major gal pal. But because Aniston has no interest in having the Duchess hitch her desperation-driven wagon to her fame, the pair are set for some very awkward run-ins. An insider told Radar Online Meghan is absolutely thrilled about this. After leaving royal life behind, she saw Jen's purchase as a cosmic nudge toward a blossoming bond. She really wants Jen as her new BFF, and she is renowned for love-bombing potential new showbiz pals. But it's all really cringy, and Jen has zero interest in being tied to Meghan. Her star power goes way beyond hers, and she just sees her as sad and needy. She'll have zero interest in her little gifts or pathetic attempts to have dinner or call around for lunch.
That moment wasn't just awkward, it was revealing. Because showing up too early, too eager, too planned exposes something deeper. It shows intention before connection, and Montecito notices intention, especially when it feels manufactured. But it didn't stop there, because behind the scenes, the pattern was already forming. Invitations that didn't land, opportunities that didn't return, a silence that wasn't accidental, it was chosen.
Needy Meghan Markle is love-bombing Jennifer Aniston with gifts ahead of the actress's move to Montecito after her stalking ordeal, but sources say the star wants the Duchess to get lost. Sources tell Radar Online the Duchess is using the actress's recent ordeal to love-bomb her with gifts, including her posh jam, in a bid to win her over ahead of the actress's move to Montecito. According to insiders, Markle has been sending her a series of gifts, including artisanal jams and luxury wellness products, in an effort to establish a connection. A source revealed Meghan is thrilled that Jennifer is moving to Montecito. She's been trying to get closer to her for years, and now that they're neighbors, she sees this as a perfect opportunity. But Aniston wants nothing to do with the Duchess because another pal said Jen appreciates the gestures, but is focused on settling into her new home and prioritizing her safety. She's not looking to expand her social circle at the moment, and here's the kicker. She also sees Meghan as poisonous and wants nothing to do with the drama she creates around herself and with the royal family. Jen, sorry, this just gets even more mortifying. Jen has quietly binned Meg's gifts and not replied to any of her desperate invites for chats. She knows Meg also wants her as a guest on her podcast, but she is having none of it. She doesn't want her jam or her friendship.
And just like that, the first illusion collapsed. Because Montecito doesn't reject loudly. It simply doesn't respond. And that non-response, that's the message. Then came something even colder. A name. Not Duchess, Not neighbor, not even Meghan Markle in full, just local villain.
I believe when this article says Prince Harry just wants to linger in the charity space and stay at home with the kids, and Meghan Markle is the one that wants to be the superstar and is the one that's obsessed with monetizing the title. I believe that to be true. I think she's going to milk everything. And her neighbors were complaining about that, that they said that they've become villains within Montecito, and her neighbors are really disgusted by the way that she is trying to milk the title to make a dime, around this family that she turned her back on.
A label like that doesn't come from tabloids. It doesn't come from strangers online. It comes from proximity, from observation, from repeated moments that slowly stack until they form a conclusion nobody needs to announce out loud.
Prince Harry as a firefighter. He's got the fiery red hair down already, so that could be a good look.
Well, listen, I'm telling you, there's plenty of things for them to do to devote their life to service.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons their neighbors can't stand them is they don't do anything for the community. And so go devote your life to your community.
So I did not know that. So the rich famous neighbors in Montecito, they don't like Harry and Meghan.
No, Harry and Meghan are very, let's say this is you, this mic is you.
Okay.
And let's say I'm a jerk. And you're like, oh my God, I love you. Oh my God, you're so great. And they're constantly looking over your shoulder to find the bigger, better deal.
Yeah.
They're a little bigger, better deal. They will take people who they think can get them somewhere but anyone else. Mm-hmm. And they also step on toes that way too, because if you're not introduced or they don't know who you are, then, but that might be the biggest person in the room, So frankly, they're just snobs.
And that's where it becomes uncomfortable, because a nickname like that doesn't need explanation. It carries its own weight. It spreads quietly, house to house, conversation to conversation, until suddenly it's just understood. But while Meghan Markle was facing silence outside the gates, something else was unfolding inside them. Prince Harry. Because Montecito wasn't just a new chapter. It was a complete replacement of everything Prince Harry once had. The noise, the chaos, the constant presence of people who didn't need invitations to exist in his life. That world didn't just fade, it was cut off.
Do you think Harry is lonely in Montecito at the moment?
Yes, 100%. But even without knowing what I know, you have to imagine that this is a young man that grew up in an all-boys school with a bunch of rambunctious guys, a lot of really deep, fun, silly friendships. They experienced something that, normal people didn't experience, going off to sleepaway school and waking up with your friends every day. Then Christmases in a castle where every room is filled with your cousins. That's not the reality he has anymore. Today, he'll wake up and celebrate a birthday with 4 people in the room. His children, his wife, his mother-in-law. I do believe he's lonely. I do believe he aches for the world he left behind.
And here's where the story deepens. Because isolation doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like quiet birthdays, smaller rooms, fewer voices, and eventually fewer choices. The life Prince Harry left behind wasn't perfect, but it was full, structured, connected, and Montecito offered freedom. But freedom without connection has a strange way of turning into something else entirely. Listen closely to what started being said. He's lonelier. He's distant. He's surrounded, but not by people who choose to be there. And that's the contradiction no one talks about loudly. Because while Meghan Markle was trying to build a new world, Prince Harry was slowly realizing what had been left behind wasn't replaceable. The cold shoulder didn't arrive all at once. It built itself quietly, moment by moment, until Meghan Markle and Prince Harry weren't being confronted, they were being avoided. Because Montecito doesn't push people out. It simply stops letting them in. The neighbors watched, waited, and slowly came to a conclusion that didn't need headlines to exist. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry weren't being rejected loudly, they were being excluded silently. And that silence, it spreads faster than any rumor because nobody challenges it. Nobody needs to. What Meghan Markle and Prince Harry came looking for wasn't just privacy. It was belonging. That invisible approval that comes from living among people who don't need to prove anything anymore. But belonging requires participation. It requires presence. And what the neighborhood saw instead was distance. No community involvement, no shared moments, no natural connection forming over time, just a mansion behind a gate and the assumption that arrival alone was enough. And then the whisper sharpened. Not anger, not outrage, just something colder. Exhaustion, because patterns don't hide forever. Requests, appearances, borrowed spaces, carefully timed moments, they started to feel less like coincidence and more like repetition. And repetition creates reputation. Slowly, quietly, the narrative shifted from curiosity to caution. not hatred, not conflict, just avoidance. That's when the moment at the gate became more than just a moment. It became a symbol. Because when Frank McGinety approached with something simple, something human, a welcome, a gesture, a piece of history, the response wasn't complicated. It was final. No entry, no exchange, no acknowledgement. And that moment didn't echo loudly. It settled. It stayed. Because a closed gate doesn't just block access. It communicates hierarchy. It draws a line between inside and outside, between who belongs and who doesn't. But while the outside world was already forming its judgment, something else was happening inside the narrative Meghan Markle was trying to build. Visibility without presence. Recognition without connection. And that's where the next crack appeared, because when locals were asked about Meghan Markle, the response wasn't emotional. It was empty. Meghan Markle wasn't disliked. Meghan Markle simply wasn't experienced, not seen, not known, not part of the environment at all. And that absence, that's more powerful than rejection, because rejection at least acknowledges existence. Absence erases it. Meanwhile, Montecito itself was changing, not internally, but externally, because wherever Meghan Markle and Prince Harry went, attention followed. Helicopters, cameras, movement, noise, the exact things Montecito was designed to avoid. And suddenly, a place that had perfected invisibility was being forced into visibility. Not because it chose to be, but because someone else brought it with them. That's when the realization deepened. This wasn't just about two individuals, it was about impact. Because in a place where privacy is the currency, anything that threatens it becomes a problem. And problems don't need confrontation, they need distance. Then came the details that seem small but reveal everything. The house, the lack of change, the refusal to adapt to the unspoken rules of the environment. Because in Montecito, homes aren't just lived in, they're transformed, reinvented, elevated. It's part of the culture. And choosing not to engage in that culture, that stands out more than any renovation ever could. And standing out in Montecito isn't always a good thing. By the time the word entitled surfaced, it didn't shock anyone, because by then the pattern had already been established. The contrast between what was said publicly and what was observed privately had become too clear to ignore. Privacy claimed, attention pursued, simplicity presented, branding expanded. Even the name tied back to the place itself, turning a quiet sanctuary into a label. And that's when the final shift happened. Fatigue, because stories only hold attention for so long before people stop listening. And in a town filled with people who've seen everything, experienced everything, and chosen silence over spectacle, the presence of constant narrative becomes noise.